Today I visit with Rebekah Bogard from the University of Nevada-Reno. I'm Rick J, and this is Spotlight on the Arts. Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts, coming to you from the Daum Museum of Contemporary Art in Sedalia, Missouri. I'm Rick J, and I ask you to please join me in welcoming artist Rebekah Bogard to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm truly excited to visit with you, chat with you today, Rebekah.
Thank you. The pleasure's all mine.
Thank you, thank you. Well, this is your first visit with me on Spotlight on the Arts. I've been looking forward to this interview for a couple months, ever since your exhibit opened here at the Daum Center a few months ago. It is really a unique and excellent exhibit of earthenware, Ms. Bogard.
Why, thank you.
Well, if I may call you by Rebekah, since I'm doing it already. Would you please share a little bit about Rebekah Bogard, if you would, please?
Okay, so I am the youngest of 5 kids, and I grew up in Casper, Wyoming. My dad worked for the school district, and my mom was a teacher for elementary school. And then I ended up going to Casper College, as the local community college, for like 6 years. I don't recommend going to a community college for 6 years, but
6 years.
But you know, it's hard to figure out how to be a professional artist. So I did community college for 6 years. I took all the art classes, which is really beneficial, and then after 6 years, I still didn't really know how to find my profession or to be a professional artist. And so I quit and got a job at a local flower shop for a couple years. And that was kind of miserable. It was maybe the worst job I've ever had. And then that really inspired me to go back to school. So then I went to the University of Wyoming-Laramie, and I got my bachelor's there, my BFA, and then after that, I still was trying to figure out how to be a professional, and so I decided to go to graduate school. So I got my graduate degree, my MFA from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and then after that, I ended up getting a job at the University of Nevada-Reno, and I met my husband number 2 at UNR and married him. He's an amazing guy, and he also is a professor there at the university. And then at marrying him, I got 2 stepchildren from that, who are now the apple of my eye.
Yes, great. Sounds like an exciting kind of an adventure there, getting through school and then finally meeting the love of your life. The 2 youngsters to fill in that space, I guess you could say. It's a really blessing, those children, that's for sure.
Yes.
It brings the best out of us.
Yes, well, I will say I never wanted to have kids, and then I got these 2 bonus kids, and all the hard work was done, and they're wonderful, and I couldn't be more happy. So.
Do you want to say hi to those individuals?
Well, hello, Grace and Noah.
And the husband?
Mr. Ron Limke.
Okay, very good. Well, let's go ahead and kind of dig deeper. What really inspired you to become an artist?
Well, so I always thought of myself as an artist growing up. As far back as I can remember, I would just draw and do all sorts of art stuff my whole life. And then the hard part was finding out how to be a professional artist. And so that's what took time. And so the catalyst for that was, like I said, I had that miserable job, and what happened was I met with the local community college counselor and said, well, can you give me a test that tells me something else that I'm good at because I need to move on and get a different job?
Yes.
And he said, well, you're on the path to regret, and if you don't change what you're doing now, you're going to be miserable the rest of your life. And I left crying because I knew everything he said was true, which would mean that I was going to have to move away from my husband, number one, at that time, and go to college. And he soon followed me afterwards. But it's just, you know, for me, it's just one step at a time, just trying to figure out how to actually find this career. And so it was in graduate school where I had a graduate teaching assistantship, and I got to teach, and I realized actually I love college. Like, I hated high school and I hated junior high and elementary school, but college was amazing, and then teaching college is even better. And so that's how I ended up teaching and getting a teaching job. And then the way I ended up getting my, you know, building my portfolio and my career and my reputation was I started with juried exhibitions, and then it just blossomed from there.
So you basically went started teaching and going to college, rubbing elbows with other people that loved what your passion became. I always say I think it's in our DNA. Well, what continues then? You continue your venture here as an artist. What really keeps you tuned?
Well, so I think the world is a beautiful and magical place, and I think that we get caught up in our workaday lives and we forget to see the beauty and magic that surrounds us. And so I create work to help remind us of that and to be in the moment and to realize the beautiful world we live in. So
yes, and we're going to talk about your exhibit after the break, but your exhibit's sort of, in my opinion, when I first saw it, it really brings me back to that nature world, you know, that I know I can go out in the forest if I'm troubled or having a bad day. I just go out in the woods, and it all comes clear again and gives you new energy. So I picked that up in your exhibit. So, well, your art works well for you, speaks well for you. So you've been viewing some of Rebekah's works here as we're talking. What would you want to basically give us a forecast of what we'll look at and talk about as far as your art? What inspires you, the earthenware? How did that come about?
Well, so I'm going to back up just a little bit. So yes, so nature is super important to me. And so as a kid, my dad used to take me fishing all the time, and I was daddy's little fisherman, and he would take me to the most wild and amazing places. And so that is definitely deep within me. And so the reason I ended up with ceramics is sort of luck. I think life happens a lot. Luck happens a lot with life. And so in high school, I was taking art classes all the time, but unfortunately the only art class available to me at the time that I had slotted was a ceramics class. And I thought, oh no, I don't want to take ceramics class. I thought ceramics is boring, because I couldn't see past, like, I thought, pots and plates and bowls, and I thought, well, that's kind of boring. But I took it and I realized, oh, actually there's a lot more to this than that. And I did do some semi-functional ceramics and really enjoyed it. But I think really what it was when I was attending college, I was in high school, I was drawing animals all the time, but then when I got to college, it sort of seemed like animals weren't a legitimate subject matter. And no one really said it wasn't legit, but I sort of got that in my head looking at all the art history. You see the Renaissance, the Greek, it's all about the human form. And so I quit drawing animals, and the minute I quit drawing animals, they just started appearing in my ceramics, but they were safe because, oh no, it's not an animal, it's a pitcher, or no, it's a teapot that kind of looks like an animal. And so ceramics just became a natural voice for me. And I think I also really like ceramics because in art history you see painting after painting after painting, and it just seemed like everything had been done, but they didn't ever really show you much ceramics, and so it felt like a fresh new medium for me.
Well, before time gets away from us, Rebekah, can you give us your contact information in case someone would like to reach you, for more information, or maybe even talk about a commission work.
So RebekahBogard.com, you don't have to spell it right, it just pops up.
It just pops up. Excellent, excellent. Well, like I say, we must take that break, so please make yourself comfortable while we look at these special messages. After the break, Rebekah will fill us in on a favorite subject matter or materials that she loves to use, and maybe a special way of completing a work of art, even maybe a technique that you'd like to share with you if you're interested, or you're stuck in a spot and you'd like to maybe continue on with that special technique that she might show you. So hang loose, stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Spotlight on the Arts. I continue with my special guest, Artist Rebekah Bogard from the state of Nevada. Rebekah, welcome back. You know, before the break, we shared a lot of information, so let's continue along those lines of thought and concentration. If you would, please describe the best you can your type of art and how that came about with your skills considered.
So I am a ceramic artist, so I love using clay, and the thing I like about clay is you can make it look like anything, whatever you want. And then I'm also an installation artist, which means I create environments, full-blown environments for you to immerse yourself into. And the way the installation art came about is I had a residency at the Bemis Center for Contemporary Art, which is in Omaha, Nebraska. And that meant that I spent 3 months there living in this artist space. And so you're away from home, so you don't have those home distractions. And during that time, I actually had the opportunity to live with my work. Because as a ceramic artist, it's messy. Your studio is always across the street or someplace else. And this was the first time that my studio was in my living space. And because it was in my living space, I went to sleep with them. I woke up with them. They sort of became part of my dreams and everything. And then I loved them so much that this is corny, but I wanted to build a world for them. And so that's how the installation, and then ever since then, I've just always wanted to create worlds for my animals.
Well, I understand completely, and it is each position that you'll see on camera. It's a story of its own, as she incorporates nature, not only in her softness of her ceramics, but the vases, as you see, but also in the animals. So I'm really excited about it, and I have been since seeing the exhibit a few months ago. Well, what is your favorite subject matter, if I have to ask that? And the materials used. The materials you use must have some impact in this final production.
So obviously, yes, my favorite subject matter is animals. And the reason I like animals so much is they're non-judgmental, you know, and I feel like humans can be kind of mean. And as a shy kid and also an introvert, I never really fit in, and so, but I always fit in with animals. So that's why they're my favorite subject matter. And then my favorite piece of all time, you know, I love all these pieces so much, so it's really hard to pick a favorite. But my favorite piece of all time is an exhibition I did titled Crush, and it's a piece that is a site-specific installation, which means it was built for the gallery. And the gallery was an octagon, and it had skylights at the top. And then what I ended up doing, and it had shelving at the top too. So I flooded the whole gallery, the entire gallery with water. So I had to get a pond liner to fill it. And then I hung false walls around it so that the water would disappear behind the walls.
Yes.
And then I had a central animal in the middle. And then I had on the shelves all along these gargoyles. I call them gargoyles. And so, or centuries. And then there was a gate. And so it's very similar to what this piece is back there.
Right.
And that's sort of a recreation of it. And so it was gated with a lock. And so basically it implied that you could come in, but you have to have a key. And so I was thinking about that space as a metaphor for myself, about being very careful who I let in. And then it was super magical because there were skylights, the light would change from day to day, and it was beautiful in the moonlight, the water would ripple and reflect. It was my favorite piece. So that is sort of
yes, we all have our space, our own space, and you've basically interpreted that with this piece. Now, what is the name of that?
So the name of that piece is Crush, and the name of the exhibition is Crush too. So,
Crush.
But the piece back here, I'm blanking on the name of that. But basically, the piece back there is sort of a redo or reinterpretation of it, and it's sort of a depiction. So I work in sort of autobiographical sort of terms, and so my work is narrative. It tells stories, and so all of these animals, I tell stories of my life. And so the one back there is like me and my husband in an embrace because I just had the most fun time when we met and when we dated, and cuddling up with him was my favorite thing to do. And so it's all about that.
That's private, but that is very, very touching, and we see that in this piece that we're sharing with you all on the timeline. So, well, let's see. I want to ask you the process. Can you give us a brief description of the process using? I'm sure you use a kiln, and you have to shape.
Right.
Can you share a little bit of that process with us?
So. Everything is made out of clay, and so I have a slab roller that I roll all of the things out. So they're all slab constructed, and so I sort of start with cylinders, and then I dart out shapes, and I manipulate it and stack cylinders on top of each other and squeeze it. And then also I use plaster molds too. And so like these pieces, I originally made a coil vessel shape, one at a time, so they all separate. And after, so I would make a coil vessel, and then I'd make a mold of that, a two-piece mold, and then the coil vessel gets thrown away, and then you slump clay into the plaster mold, so it speeds up the process. So I do use plaster molds for some of these repetitive sort of things.
I see.
And then the animals are all handmade. And then
handmade, hand-formed?
Yeah, with the slabs. And then they do get fired in the kiln. And then it goes to, I usually fire them to roughly 1,800 degrees or 1,900 degrees. And these things, I call them trees or topiaries, were tricky to make, especially the big ones, because they have to be thin because I have to be able to carry them. And then they also have to stay together, and they also have to transport. My studio is about a 20-minute drive from the kiln. So I actually have to wheel them down the hall, take them down the elevator, carry them down to the stairs, load them in my truck, bring them back to school, unload them, go up and down stairs and put them in the kiln. And I don't know how many of those big ones I made I broke so many of those before I figured out how to make them so they didn't break.
And so you had a successful trip from Nevada
Yeah, so once they're fired, then they're strong, and you just have to pack well. And so I'm a good packer.
And how many pieces are we going to count here?
Oh my God!
At the Daum.
Well, I consider this a piece. I consider that a piece. But if you're talking like individual boxes, hundreds. I mean, I filled a 20-foot U-Haul, and it barely fits.
That's how the U-Haul.
Yeah.
Well packed.
Yes.
I see. Wow, my. So what drew you to the Daum Museum of Contemporary Art?
I was invited to participate in a group show, and the group show was hosted by Art Axis, ARTAXIS, which is a ceramic website dedicated towards. It's an artist website dedicated towards ceramics, and it's a curated website that you have to be accepted into. And so they put together a group show of various Art Axis members, and I was invited to be part of that, which was a really big honor. And then because of that, I met Gary. We struck up a conversation. I've known of this place for a very long time, but had never been there because I'm from Reno, and this is so far away. And then just coming to this place is just mind-blowing. It's gorgeous, and who wouldn't want to have a show here? This is probably the biggest. This is definitely the biggest show I've had in my life, but it is probably the most monumental, the most important in scope, I would say. Yeah.
Well, as you see, Rebekah speaks well of the Daum Museum of Contemporary Art. Our gentleman here that takes care of the shows and what have you is Gary Holstein, and it is one of the top galleries, museums of contemporary art in the United States, maybe the world, I'd say, because I hear good things about the Daum even from other places. Now, I did want to ask you, on the clay, do you order the clay from some of the best clay in the world, like Italy, or is that a secret?
No, I keep no secrets, because if you have secrets, then you're afraid someone can steal them and make better work than you. But so my clay is all made from scratch, most of it. Some of this clay is commercially made, but mostly I make my own clay body. There are 4 different ingredients, and you can find the ingredients on my website if you're interested. Okay. And it's just a nice plastic clay body. And then the reason some of these are commercial clay bodies is because it's just faster to make, and I don't always have time. But when I'm making my animals, I like to use my homemade clay body because it has nice plastic.
You have your own recipe, I guess.
Well, it was given to me from a teacher, so I did not make it myself.
Well, so you're honestly sharing that. But
yeah.
Whatever you're doing it right.
Thank you.
It beats the mud on the farm, playing with the mud.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, I always ask our guests, Rebekah, for closing words, and you'd like to pass on to viewers. Maybe, again, someone that is kind of stuck, maybe looking at taking ceramics at a college level, or beginning artists here in the community. What words would you have to inspire them?
Well, I would say don't give up. I would also say the art world is full of rejection, and you can't take the rejection too seriously. You just have to pick yourself up and do more stuff. And then I would also say knowing what not to do is as important as knowing what to do. And the only way to know what not to do is to actually do it. So mostly just make a bunch of work. It's called artwork, and it's work, and it's called that for a reason. So make lots of work.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I want to thank you, Ms. Bogard, once again for contributing to Spotlight on the Arts. It's been a really inspiring visit with you, and informational and educational also. It's been a great experience for me, and I'm sure it is for the viewers, for everyone. So thank you once again, Rebekah.
Well, likewise, the pleasure is all mine.
Well, thank you, thank you. Well, that wraps up another look at an inspiring artist here on Spotlight on the Arts. The first time I've really been able to dig in and talk about the ceramics in a massive installation project, as Rebekah describes it. We want to wish her the best for future exhibits, installations, what have you. And please comment when you can on Instagram or YouTube or GMN Plus, my new streaming network. I want to thank the Daum Museum of Contemporary Art here in Sedalia, Missouri for use of the facility and taking interest in Rebekah's work. And I want to thank you viewers, naturally, for joining me here today. And I want to thank Yves Andre Exelis for taking time out to assist me in the filming and the sound here at the presentation and interview. I'm Rick J. saying stay healthy and safe. Don't forget to tune in to a global media network, the streaming network. You will see artists of all types based on my experience of the past, entertainers, artists with a brush, artists with ceramic, as we see today. So you see all types. So Rick J. saying, see you next time.